Hey guys, tonight we're going to dive into something a little different. Something that might just make you appreciate your memory foam mattress and that perfectly brewed cup of coffee a whole lot more. We're going to explore the life of a Greek philosopher, but not the shiny marble statue version you see in textbooks. Oh no, we're talking about the gritty, uncomfortable, often downright miserable reality of it all. Imagine yourself there, a citizen of ancient Greece, perhaps, with a mind buzzing with questions, eager to seek wisdom, but entirely unprepared for the sheer, unadulterated suckiness of your existence. You might think dusty scrolls and deep thoughts sound romantic, but trust me, you probably wouldn't survive a week. The sheer lack of basic amenities, the constant threat of disease, the complete absence of anything resembling personal comfort. It's a wonder anyone managed to philosophize at all. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You might envision your philosophical journey beginning in a grand academy surrounded by eager students and an abundance of fresh fruit, perhaps a gentle breeze rustling through olive groves. The reality, however, is far more earthy. Your birth, a rather unceremonious event, likely took place in a small, cramped home, perhaps even a single room shared with multiple family members, and quite possibly some livestock if you were on the poorer side of the spectrum. Forget sterile environments and caring nurses. Your mother, aided by a midwife, would have endured the process with little more than grit and a few herbal remedies. The air would be thick with the smell of wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and the lingering scent of whatever the family had for their last meager meal. There's no soft crib for you, no carefully crafted mobile to lull you to sleep. You are swaddled tightly in rough linen or wool, placed on a straw mat, and immediately introduced to the harsh realities of ancient Greek infant mortality. 1 in 3 children wouldn't make it past their first birthday, a stark and chilling statistic that casts a permanent shadow over every newborn's life. You are in essence a lottery ticket, and the odds are not in your favor. Your parents, far from the intellectual elite, are likely simple folk. Perhaps your father is a stonecutter, his hands calloused and cracked from years of shaping marble for temples, or grinding grain for the family's daily bread. Your mother a weaver, her fingers nimble from countless hours at the loom, producing the coarse fabrics that clothe your family and perhaps earn a few aboles at the local market. There is no concept of childhood as we know it. From the moment you can walk, you are contributing. There are chores, endless chores. Carrying water from the communal well, a heavy amphora digging into your small shoulder. Tending to the family's few animals, shooing away goats or chickens from the meager patch of garden. Sweeping the dirt floor of your home, endlessly battling the dust that drifts in from the unpaved streets. Your days are dictated by the sun and the demanding rhythm of survival. Playtime, when it occurs, is often a brief respite, a quick game of knucklebones with other children in the dusty street before the ever-present demands of work call you back. You learn early that idleness is a luxury you cannot afford. Formal education, if it comes at all, is a privilege, not a right. For you, a child of common birth, it might be a few years spent in a small dark room, memorizing Homeric epics by rote, the lines chanted repeatedly until they're etched into your memory. You'll learn basic arithmetic, perhaps how to read and write simple sentences on wax tablets. But there are no libraries filled with endless volumes, no illuminated manuscripts. Your textbooks are likely a single papyrus roll, meticulously copied and recopied, worn thin from countless hands. The teacher, often a man of modest means himself, might resort to a switch or a cane to encourage your focus, a common practice that reinforces the harsh discipline of the age. Forget cozy classrooms. The wind might whip through the open doorways, bringing with it the smells of the city, refuse wood smoke, and the ever-present aroma of the sea. Your focus is constantly tested by the sounds of daily life outside, the shouts of vendors, the braying of donkeys, the incessant chatter of a bustling city. This rudimentary education, however, is merely a foundation, a springboard for those rare few who can somehow transcend their humble beginnings. Most of your peers will return to the fields, the workshops, or the fishing boats, their intellectual curiosity stifled by the immediate need to survive. Even your diet is a constant reminder of your precarious position. Forget the balanced meals and nutritional guidelines of today. Your staple is likely barley porridge or flatbread, perhaps seasoned with wild herbs if you're lucky. Meat is a rarity reserved for religious sacrifices or special occasions, and even then it's often tough and stringy. Fish, if you live near the coast, provides some protein, but again, it's not a daily occurrence. Vegetables are scarce and often bitter grown in small, hard-won plots. One common historical fact often overlooked is the sheer monotony of the ancient Greek diet for the average citizen. You eat what you can grow, what you can trade, and what is in season. There are no exotic spices from distant lands, no refrigerated meats, no endless aisles of processed foods. Hunger is a familiar companion, a dull ache in your stomach that you learn to live with. You learn to savor every morsel to waste nothing, for tomorrow's meal is never guaranteed. As you grow, your body adapts to this relentless existence. You become wiry and strong from manual labor, your skin tanned and leathery from constant exposure to the Mediterranean sun. There's no sunscreen, no protective clothing beyond simple tunics. Your feet, often bare or shod in crude sandals, are toughened by rough terrain and sharp stones. Cuts and scrapes are common and often fester given the lack of antiseptic and basic hygiene. You learn to ignore the persistent aches and pains, the dull throbbing in your joints from hours of repetitive tasks. Historians still debate whether the stoic resilience of ancient Greeks was a philosophical choice or simply a necessary adaptation to pervasive discomfort. It's easy to romanticize the simplicity of ancient life, but the reality is one of constant physical challenge. Your home, a simple affair of sun-baked mud brick or rough stone, offers little respite. It's dark, often smoky from the cooking fire, and perpetually damp in the winter. Windows are rare, covered only by wooden shutters or perhaps a piece of stretched animal hide, offering little in the way of light or ventilation. Privacy is a foreign concept. Entire families sleep in a single room, their breathing and movements a constant presence. There's no running water, no indoor plumbing. Waste is often thrown into the streets or collected in cesspits, contributing to the pervasive odors and the constant threat of disease. You learn to sleep through the sounds of the city, the barking dogs, the distant shouts, the scurrying of rodents in the walls. Comfort as we define it today simply doesn't exist. Despite these hardships, a nascent curiosity begins to stir within you. Perhaps you've overheard discussions at the agora, snippets of conversation about the nature of the cosmos, the meaning of justice, or the workings of the human mind. These intellectual sparks flickering against the backdrop of your arduous life are rare and precious. They set you apart, albeit subtly, from your peers who are content to follow the well-trodden paths of their ancestors. You might find yourself drawn to the elders, listening intently to their stories and their wisdom, even if their understanding of the world is limited by superstition and myth. This early intellectual hunger, a quiet rebellion against the drudgery of your daily life, is the first whisper of your future as a philosopher. It's a curious little fact that many of the most profound Greek thinkers came from surprisingly humble backgrounds, not the wealthy elite as one might assume. Their genius wasn't nurtured in gilded cages, but forged in the crucible of hardship, their minds sharper, because they had to fight for every scrap of knowledge, every moment of contemplation. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to seek answers, even when the immediate questions are about where your next meal will come from. You don't have the luxury of idle speculation. Your philosophical inquiries are born from a deep-seated need to understand the fundamental truths of a world that is often brutal and unforgiving. Your nascent curiosity, that tiny spark flickering in the dimness of your early life, eventually leads you down a path that is anything but glamorous. You find yourself drawn to the bustling agora, the marketplace, not for trade, but for debate. This is where the true intellectual theater of ancient Greece unfolds, where ideas clash like swords and reputations are forged or shattered with every well-placed question. You stand on the periphery, a silent observer at first, absorbing the arguments, the rhetoric, the sheer audacity of men daring to question the established order. This is where you first encounter the likes of Socrates, or at least the spirit of his method, even if the man himself is long gone or you are in a different time period from his immediate influence. Imagine the scene: a circle of men, some distinguished by their age and flowing cloaks, others younger, eager, all bathed in the harsh Mediterranean sun. The air vibrates with their voices, a cacophony of logical reasoning, passionate appeals, and often thinly veiled insults. There's no polite cue, no raised hands for turns. It's a free-for-all of intellect, and if you can't shout loudest or reason most sharply, you simply aren't heard. You, a humble newcomer, struggle to even get a word in edgewise. Your voice, accustomed to the quiet of your home or the commands of manual labor, feels small and inadequate against the booming pronouncements of seasoned debaters. This isn't the gentle give and take of a modern seminar. This is a gladiatorial arena for the mind, and you are for now merely a spectator, hoping to learn the moves without getting mentally disemboweled. The Socratic method, as you begin to understand it, is not a gentle coaxing towards truth. It's a relentless barrage of questions designed to expose ignorance, dismantle flawed logic, and force self-reflection. When you finally muster the courage to offer an opinion, perhaps a tentative thought about justice or beauty, you are immediately met with a volley of "why" and "what do you mean by that?" and "are you truly certain?" It's not a conversation, it's an interrogation. Your carefully constructed ideas, which felt so profound in the quiet of your own mind, crumble under this relentless scrutiny like poorly built sandcastles against a determined tide. You stammer, you sweat, your face flushes with embarrassment as your supposed wisdom is revealed to be nothing more than unexamined assumptions. This isn't just about learning, it's about being publicly humbled repeatedly. Other bystanders might snicker or offer their own biting critiques, adding to your discomfort. There's no safe space, no judgment-free zone. The point is not to make you feel good, but to make you truly think about the foundations of your beliefs. You learn quickly that holding an opinion is not enough. You must be able to defend it, dissect it, and withstand the harshest intellectual assaults. This process is exhausting, emotionally draining, and often deeply humiliating. You question yourself, your intelligence, even your sanity. Why put yourself through this constant torment? Yet something within you, that persistent spark of curiosity, compels you to return day after day for another round of intellectual pummeling. Your pursuit of philosophical knowledge often comes at a steep personal cost. Unlike the modern academic who might receive grants or a salary, you are largely dependent on your own means or the generosity of a few patrons who see potential in your burgeoning intellect. But patronage is a fickle mistress, often demanding reciprocal favors or political allegiance which can compromise your intellectual independence. More often than not, you support yourself through manual labor just as you did in your youth. Imagine spending your mornings toiling in the fields, your back aching your hands, calloused only to spend your afternoons in intense philosophical debate, your mind equally exhausted. One common historical fact that often escapes modern romanticized views of Greek philosophers is that most of them were not independently wealthy aristocrats. Many had to work just like everyone else, meaning their philosophical pursuits were often squeezed into the scant hours, not consumed by the struggle for survival. This dual existence creates an internal conflict. Your body craves rest, your stomach growls for food, but your mind yearns for truth. You might walk for miles to hear a renowned speaker, only to arrive dirty and tired to a lecture hall packed with well-fed, perfumed citizens who arrived by litter. You stand in the back, straining to hear every word, your feet aching your mind, battling the urge to simply collapse. There are no comfortable chairs, no climate control. In the summer, the heat is oppressive, the air thick with the scent of unwashed bodies and the dust of the unpaved streets. In the winter, the chill seeps into your bones, and your thin tunic offers little protection against the biting winds. Your hands might be stained with clay from pottery or rough from handling wood, a constant reminder of the physical labor that underpins your intellectual aspirations. The social landscape further complicates your philosophical journey. While some might admire your pursuit of wisdom, many more view it with suspicion or outright derision. You are not a merchant bringing goods to market, nor a soldier defending the polis, nor a farmer feeding the community. You are in the eyes of many idle. You ask unsettling questions, challenge traditional beliefs, and often seem to live outside the accepted norms. Historians still debate the extent to which philosophical inquiry was genuinely embraced versus tolerated or even feared by the general populace in ancient Greece. Your relentless questioning of societal norms of the gods of what constitutes a good life can be seen as subversive. People might avoid you fearing your sharp tongue or the unsettling doubts you sow. Your family might express concern urging you to focus on a more practical path, one that guarantees food on the table and a stable future. This social pressure is a constant undercurrent, a subtle but persistent form of alienation. Consider the practicalities of your daily philosophical life. You don't have access to printing presses or vast libraries. Every scroll you read is a precious commodity copied by hand, expensive and often guarded jealously. You might spend hours painstakingly transcribing texts, your eyes straining in the flickering lamplight, your fingers cramped from holding the stylus. This physical act of copying becomes interwoven with your mental absorption of the material, a slow, deliberate process of learning that is far removed from the instant access of information we enjoy today. Furthermore, the very act of writing is cumbersome. You might use a wax tablet for notes, a temporary surface that can be wiped clean, or papyrus, which is costly and fragile. Imagine trying to develop a complex philosophical argument when the very act of putting thoughts to paper is a laborious endeavor. Your interactions with other philosophers, while intellectually stimulating, are rarely free of ego and rivalry. The ancient Greek world, for all its intellectual brilliance, was also fiercely competitive. Philosophers vied for students for patronage and for reputation. Debates could quickly devolve into personal attacks with participants trying to undermine not just each other's arguments, but their character as well. There's no collegiality in the modern sense. It's a constant proving ground. You might find yourself defending your ideas against a vicious personal assault. Your intellectual integrity questioned, your motives impugned. This isn't about polite academic discourse, it's about survival in a brutal intellectual landscape. A lesser-known detail about philosophical circles is the surprising amount of petty infighting and personal animosity that often simmered beneath the surface of profound discussions. Even the act of teaching, if you manage to gather a few students, is fraught with challenges. Your school might be an informal gathering under a tree or in a rented room, or simply in the corner of the agora. There are no tuition fees, no structured curricula in the way we understand them. You are teaching often for the love of wisdom, for the joy of sharing ideas, but also out of a desperate need to find a way to sustain yourself without completely abandoning your intellectual pursuits. Your students might be as poor as you, struggling to make ends meet, and your instruction is as much an act of charity as it is a profession. You are constantly searching for ways to balance the demands of your mind with the insistent demands of your physical existence, a struggle that defines much of your philosophical journey. Forget about sterile hospitals and readily available pharmaceuticals. Your body is a fragile vessel in a world teeming with invisible threats. A simple cut, a scratch from a thorny bush while gathering herbs, or even a splinter from your rough wooden furniture can quickly escalate into a life-threatening infection. There's no understanding of bacteria, no antibiotics to ward off the encroaching rot. Pus and swelling are common occurrences, and the only remedy might be to poultice it with various concoctions, perhaps ground up leaves, or even more disturbingly animal dung, which a common historical fact reveals was surprisingly prevalent in ancient medical practices, despite its obvious lack of hygiene. You simply cross your fingers and hope your body's own defenses are strong enough to fight off the invaders. Many are not so lucky. You've seen friends, neighbors, even family members succumb to what would now be considered minor ailments. A cough turns into pneumonia, a fever escalates into delirium. A stomach ache becomes a fatal dysentery. Death is a constant, unwelcome presence, a grim reaper lurking just beyond the threshold of every home. Your diet, as previously established, is monotonous and often lacking in essential nutrients. This makes you particularly susceptible to a host of deficiency diseases. Scurvy, with its bleeding gums and debilitating fatigue, might be a constant threat if you lack access to fresh fruits and vegetables, especially during winter months. Rickets, twisting bones into painful deformities, could be an issue for children, though its long-term effects would plague you throughout adulthood. Imagine the dull, persistent aches in your joints, the constant fatigue that saps your intellectual energy, all stemming from a diet that simply can't sustain optimal health. You learn to live with a baseline level of discomfort, a kind of low-grade suffering that becomes your normal. And then there are the parasites. Clean drinking water is a luxury in many areas, and you often draw your water from communal wells or rivers, blissfully unaware of the microscopic life teeming within. Intestinal worms are a common affliction, causing chronic digestive issues, nutrient malabsorption, and general weakness. Lice and fleas are omnipresent companions, a constant itch that drives you to distraction, especially when you are trying to concentrate on complex philosophical problems. There are no shampoos or insect repellents. You simply try to comb them out or suffer through the incessant itching. Your sleep, already disrupted by hard beds and noisy surroundings, is often further disturbed by the relentless crawling sensations on your skin. A little-known detail is just how pervasive and accepted these infestations were, simply a part of daily life that everyone endured. When serious illness strikes, your options are terrifyingly limited. Ancient Greek medicine, while making some advancements, was still based on a mix of empirical observation, superstition, and theories about the four humors. If you have a raging fever, a physician might bleed you, believing it will balance your bodily fluids. Imagine having your arm cut open, a stream of your lifeblood draining into a bowl while you are already weak and delirious. The pain is intense, the procedure often unsterile, and the outcome frequently fatal. Or perhaps you'll be given a concoction of herbs, some genuinely medicinal, others utterly useless or even harmful. There are no pain relievers beyond perhaps opium, which itself carries the risk of addiction. You endure your suffering with a stoicism born not of choice but of necessity. Dental hygiene is practically non-existent. You chew tough, coarse food often containing grit from poorly ground flour. There are no toothbrushes, no toothpaste, just the occasional rinse with water. Tooth decay is rampant, leading to abscesses, constant pain, and eventually tooth loss. Imagine trying to engage in a spirited debate about epistemology while a throbbing toothache consumes your every thought, or enduring the agony of an infected gum. When a tooth becomes too painful, the only solution is extraction performed without anesthesia, often with crude tools like pliers or tongs. The sound of the wrenching, the blinding pain, the taste of blood. These are experiences you desperately try to avoid but often cannot. Historians still debate the specific techniques used for ancient dental extractions, but all evidence points to them being incredibly brutal and traumatic procedures. Beyond the common ailments, there are the injuries. Your life is physically demanding. You might fall from a ladder, suffer a sprain while lifting heavy objects, or sustain a cut from a tool. Fractures are common, and the setting of bones is a painful, inexact science. Imagine lying still for weeks, perhaps months, with a poorly set limb, the constant ache, the itching under crude bandages, and the ever-present fear of the limb healing improperly, leaving you with a lifelong disability. A limp, a stiff joint, a perpetually aching back. These are the badges of a life lived without modern medical intervention. Even your mental well-being is constantly under siege. The relentless struggle for survival, the public scrutiny of your philosophical endeavors, the constant physical discomfort, it all takes a toll. There's no concept of mental health therapy, no understanding of depression or anxiety, beyond perhaps attributing it to an imbalance of humors. If you appear withdrawn or erratic, you might be ostracized, seen as divinely cursed, or simply eccentric to the point of madness. Your intellectual pursuits, far from being a refuge, sometimes amplify your isolation, pushing you further to the margins of a society that struggles to comprehend your abstract thoughts amidst the urgent realities of daily life. The pressure to conform, to put food on the table, to maintain appearances while simultaneously striving for intellectual transcendence, creates an immense internal strain. You learn to find small moments of peace amidst the pain. The warmth of the sun on your skin on a cool morning, the taste of fresh water after a long, dusty walk, the quiet satisfaction of a philosophical insight, however fleeting. These are the tiny victories, the brief respites that allow you to continue your arduous journey. You become intimately familiar with your own body, its limits, its vulnerabilities, and its surprising capacity for resilience. Every ache, every discomfort, every brush with illness serves as a stark reminder of your mortality. perhaps even deepening your philosophical inquiries into the nature of life, death, and suffering. You are not just a mind contemplating the universe. You are a body constantly battling against it, and this struggle profoundly shapes your worldview. Your philosophical journey, while deeply personal, is inextricably tied to the tumultuous political landscape of ancient Greece. You are not a solitary thinker in a vacuum. You are a citizen subject to the whims of democracy, the brutal realities of war, and the ever-present threat of tyranny. Your daily life, your ability to even pursue philosophical thought, is constantly shaped by forces far beyond your control. You might be contemplating the ideal form of government one moment, and the next find yourself conscripted into military service or facing famine due to a botched political decision. Imagine living in a city-state like Athens, a beacon of democracy, yet also a volatile cauldron of political factions. You, as a citizen, have the right to participate in the assembly, to vote on laws, and to engage in debates that directly impact your life. But this isn't the orderly parliamentary debate of modern times. The assembly is a chaotic, boisterous affair, often dominated by charismatic orators and powerful demagogues. Your quiet, reasoned arguments honed in philosophical discussions might be completely drowned out by the shouts of the crowd or the impassioned appeals of someone more skilled in rhetoric than logic. A common historical fact is that Athenian democracy, while groundbreaking, was far from a perfect system, often susceptible to mob rule and emotional appeals over rational deliberation. You might watch helpless as decisions are made that you know are foolish or unjust, yet lack the power to sway the majority. And then there's the constant shadow of war. Ancient Greece was a patchwork of independent city-states, each with its own interests, alliances, and often simmering hostilities with its neighbors. Conflict was endemic. You, as a male citizen, would be expected to serve as a hoplite, a foot soldier in the city's militia. Forget your philosophical scrolls and your contemplative walks. You are now handed a heavy bronze shield, a long spear, and a helmet, and thrust into the unforgiving reality of the battlefield. The training is brutal, the conditions even more so. You march for days under the scorching sun, carrying your own provisions, sleeping on the hard ground, your mind filled not with abstract ideas, but with the visceral fear of death. Combat itself is terrifyingly personal. Phalanx warfare, the dominant fighting style, involves tightly packed lines of men pushing and stabbing, a brutal claustrophobic engagement, where you face your enemy eye to eye. The sounds are deafening, the clang of bronze on bronze, the shouts of men, the screams of the wounded. The smells are sickening, sweat, blood, fear. There's no glory in it, only the desperate struggle to survive. You might witness comrades fall, their lives extinguished in an instant, and you know that your own turn could come at any moment. This experience, far from the intellectual pursuits of your chosen path, forces you to confront mortality in its rawest form. How can you philosophize about the good life when death looms so close, a constant companion on the battlefield? Historians still debate the psychological toll of continuous warfare on the ancient Greek psyche, particularly for those whose natural inclination was towards intellectual pursuits rather than military might. Even if you survive the battlefield, the economic consequences of war can be devastating. Trade routes are disrupted, crops are destroyed, and your city's resources are drained to fund the military. This can lead to widespread poverty, famine, and social unrest. You already living a life of relative austerity might find yourself pushed to the brink of starvation. The philosophical contemplation of virtue seems a cruel joke when your stomach aches with hunger and your family struggles to find food. This is the brutal irony of your existence. While your mind soars to the heights of abstract thought, your body and your circumstances remain firmly rooted in the harsh realities of ancient Greek life. Beyond external conflicts, your city-state is also vulnerable to internal strife. Political coups known as tyrannies were a recurring feature of Greek history. A powerful individual or faction might seize control, overthrowing the democratic process and ruling with an iron fist. As a philosopher, your position under a tyrant could be precarious. Your questioning nature, your insistence on rational discourse, and your independent thought might be seen as a threat to the tyrant's authority. You could face censorship, imprisonment, or even execution for simply speaking your mind. The pursuit of truth, which is the very essence of your philosophical being, could become a deadly endeavor. Imagine the fear of living under such a regime. Whispers replace open debate. Walls have ears. You might have to choose between silencing your thoughts, betraying your intellectual principles, or risking your life for the sake of truth. This is not just a theoretical dilemma, it is a very real existential threat. A lesser known detail is how many philosophers chose exile or even death rather than compromise their intellectual integrity under tyrannical rule. Their commitment to their ideals was tested in the most extreme ways, often forcing them to confront the very real limitations of philosophical influence in a world governed by brute force. Furthermore, even in times of relative peace, the social fabric of your city-state is often stretched thin by inequality and injustice. Slavery is an entrenched institution forming the very backbone of the economy. While you might intellectually debate the ethics of slavery, its presence is a constant, inescapable reality of your daily life. The labor of slaves allows some citizens the leisure to pursue intellectual endeavors, but it also creates a stark moral contradiction that philosophers grappled with, often without clear resolution. You are benefiting, however, indirectly from the exploitation of others, a fact that can cast a shadow on your pursuit of an ideal society. Your philosophical discussions while seeking universal truths are also deeply embedded in the specific cultural and political context of your time. You are shaped by the myths, the customs, and the prejudices of your city-state. Your understanding of concepts like justice, freedom, and the good life is filtered through the lens of your own society with its particular biases and limitations. It's a humbling thought. Even the most brilliant minds of your era, including your own, are products of their time, unable to fully escape the intellectual and social confines of their world. Your wisdom, profound as it may be, is not a transcendent, unblemished truth, but a human endeavor always subject to the imperfections of its origins. Your life as a Greek philosopher, while ostensibly dedicated to the pursuit of truth and wisdom, is also a constant navigation of social ostracization. You are in many ways an outsider, a peculiar figure whose relentless questioning and unconventional lifestyle sets you apart from the comfortable rhythms of everyday life. This isn't just about intellectual disagreement. It's about being fundamentally misunderstood sometimes, even feared by the very society you seek to enlighten. Imagine attending a public festival, perhaps a Dionysian celebration, where the air is thick with laughter music and the communal spirit of revelry. You, however, stand slightly apart, observing the exuberance with a critical eye, perhaps pondering the nature of collective delusion or the philosophical implications of ecstatic states. Your aloofness isn't born of arrogance, but of a mind constantly dissecting, analyzing, and questioning. This makes you seem odd, even unsettling to those simply seeking joy and connection. You might offer a quiet, thoughtful remark about the ephemeral nature of pleasure, only to be met with blank stares or polite but swift changes of subject. People aren't looking for profound insights at a party. They're looking for uncomplicated enjoyment. Your presence, therefore, can be a subtle dampener on the mood, and soon you find yourself less frequently invited or simply fading into the background, an accepted but somewhat awkward presence. Your intellectual pursuits often mean you neglect the traditional paths to social standing. While others are building businesses, acquiring property, or cultivating political connections, you are immersed in abstract thought. You might wear simple, unadorned clothing, eschewing the luxurious tunics and cloaks favored by the wealthy. Your home, if you even possess one of your own, is likely modest, devoid of the opulent decorations that signify status. This lack of material ambition, while perhaps a testament to your philosophical detachment, is often misinterpreted as poverty idleness, or even a deliberate rejection of societal norms. It's a common historical fact that many Greek philosophers lived lives of deliberate simplicity, which often put them at odds with the materialistic aspirations of their society. You are not striving for recognition in the conventional sense, but for intellectual breakthroughs, and this difference in priorities creates an unbridgeable chasm between you and the majority. The very nature of your philosophical method can be deeply alienating. If you adopt a Socratic approach, you are constantly challenging assumptions, exposing contradictions, and making people feel frankly a little foolish. while this might be intellectually stimulating for a select few for the average person. It's simply annoying. Nobody likes to be told they don't really understand what they think they understand. You become known as the person who asks too many questions, who makes things complicated, who punctures comfortable illusions. People might avoid eye contact with you in the street, fearing an impromptu philosophical ambush. Your reputation precedes you. Beware the philosopher, for he will make you doubt everything you hold dear. This makes casual conversation difficult, and genuine friendships outside of your small circle of fellow thinkers incredibly rare. Even family ties can become strained. Your parents, if they are still alive, might despair of your chosen path. They might have hoped for you to become a successful merchant, a skilled artisan, or a respected citizen in a more traditional sense. Instead, you spend your days debating obscure concepts, seemingly producing nothing tangible. Your siblings might resent your perceived idleness or feel embarrassed by your unconventional lifestyle. There's no familial pride in your intellectual achievements. If those achievements don't translate into wealth, power, or social acceptance within the conventional framework. Historians still debate the extent to which family pressure influenced the philosophical pursuits of individuals in ancient Greece, but anecdotal evidence suggests it was a significant factor for many. You might feel the weight of their unspoken disappointment, a quiet but persistent burden that adds to your isolation. Your interactions with the powerful can be particularly dangerous. As a philosopher, you might be invited to advise rulers or wealthy patrons, a seemingly prestigious role. However, your commitment to truth means you are unlikely to flatter or equivocate. You will speak inconvenient truths, point out flaws in logic, and challenge unethical decisions. This honesty, while admirable, can easily irritate those in power who are accustomed to sycophancy. A cutting remark, a too incisive question, or a perceived challenge to authority could lead to your banishment, imprisonment, or even death. Remember what happened to Socrates. While your direct experience may not mirror his exactly, the chilling precedent hangs over every philosopher's head. You walk a tightrope, balancing your intellectual integrity against the very real risks of offending those who hold your life in their hands. Consider the simple act of choosing your companions. While others gather in taverns to drink and gossip, you seek out those few kindred spirits who share your intellectual hunger. Your discussions are not about daily trivialities, but about profound concepts, the nature of reality, the meaning of existence, the pursuit of virtue. This exclusivity, while necessary for your intellectual growth, further isolates you from the broader community. You become part of a small, often eccentric intellectual clique viewed with suspicion by the masses. Your intellectual community, while vital, becomes a kind of self-imposed exile from mainstream society. Even your personal habits might be considered peculiar. You might practice asceticism, deliberately denying yourself comforts to focus on mental discipline. This could mean fasting for extended periods, sleeping on hard surfaces, or enduring extreme temperatures. While you view this as a path to clarity and self-mastery, others might see it as madness or a deliberate affront to the gods who provide earthly comforts. Your simple diet, your plain clothing, your often unkempt appearance, all contribute to an image that is far removed from the idealized, well-groomed citizen. This isn't about being coolly detached. It's about being fundamentally out of sync with the prevailing social norms, making you a conspicuous and often criticized figure. In essence, your life as a Greek philosopher means living on the fringes. You are constantly balancing your inner world of profound thought with an outer world that often finds your pursuits baffling, threatening, or simply irrelevant. You choose a path that demands intellectual honesty, but that honesty comes at the cost of social acceptance, comfort, and sometimes even safety. You are a truth seeker in a world that often prefers comforting illusions, and that makes you inevitably an outcast. This isolation, while sometimes self-imposed, is also a profound and often painful aspect of your philosophical journey. Your intellectual journey into the depths of philosophical inquiry doesn't magically exempt you from the pervasive health woes and primitive medical realities of ancient Greece. In fact, sometimes your very pursuit of knowledge, with its long hours of study, poor lighting, and often meager diet, might even exacerbate your physical vulnerabilities. You are a mind striving for clarity housed in a body constantly assailed by ailments, and the shockingly crude attempts at their remedy. Imagine spending hours hunched over a papyrus scroll, perhaps in a dimly lit room, your eyes straining to decipher faded script. This constant visual exertion, coupled with the fine dust from the papyrus itself, would lead to chronic eye irritation, blurring vision, and headaches that hammer behind your temples. There are no spectacles to correct your sight, no eye drops to soothe the redness. You simply endure rubbing your aching eyes, perhaps splashing them with cold water, and accepting the gradual deterioration of your vision as an inevitable part of aging or intensive study. It's a common historical fact that poor eyesight was a widespread affliction in the ancient world, often severely limiting literacy for many. This constant discomfort makes sustained reading and writing a genuine physical challenge, transforming intellectual pursuit into an act of physical endurance. Beyond your eyes, your body is a battleground against a myriad of afflictions. The most basic and relentless of these is often gastrointestinal distress. Your diet heavy on grains and legumes, often lacking in fresh, diverse produce and prepared without modern sanitation, means your digestive system is perpetually under siege. You've likely experienced crippling stomach cramps, bouts of debilitating diarrhea, or agonizing constipation. The constant ebb and flow of these issues saps your energy, leaving you weak and irritable. There's no easy access to antacids or probiotics. Remedies might include bitter herbal teas that upset your stomach even more, or perhaps frighteningly drastic measures like forced vomiting or enemas. These are not quick fixes. They are often prolonged, painful experiences that leave you even more depleted. And then there's the pervasive issue of skin conditions. Without regular bathing clean clothing or antiseptic soaps, fungal infections, boils, rashes, and persistent itching are common. Imagine trying to concentrate on Aristotle's metaphysics while your skin is crawling with unseen tormentors, or a painful boil on your arm makes writing agony. You might apply various concoctions, some made from olive oil and ash, others with more exotic and dubious ingredients like animal fats or even urine. These remedies are often more about tradition and superstition than effective medicine, and sometimes they make the condition worse. A lesser-known detail is the societal acceptance of many unpleasant bodily conditions. Personal hygiene as we know it simply wasn't a priority or even a possibility for most, leading to widespread skin ailments. Joint pain and arthritis are also likely to be constant companions. Your life involves significant physical labor, whether from your humble origins or simply the demands of walking everywhere carrying water or engaging in manual tasks to support yourself. Combine this with damp living conditions, cold winters, and a diet perhaps low in certain anti-inflammatory nutrients, and you have a recipe for chronic aches. Your knees creak when you stand your back. Protest after a long day and your fingers might swell and ache, making the delicate work of writing on papyrus or carving wax a painful chore. There are no NSAIDs, no joint supplements. You just endure the stiffness and pain, pushing through it as best you can. Sleep, that precious commodity, is often elusive and rarely restorative. Your bedding is likely a straw or wool mat on a hard floor, perhaps shared with family. The sounds of your dwelling, the street outside, and the natural world are unfiltered. There are no quiet, darkened rooms. You are constantly exposed to temperature extremes, to the early morning crow of a rooster or the late-night revelry of neighbors. When illness strikes, sleep becomes almost impossible as you toss and turn with fever, pain, or nausea. The cumulative effect of this perpetual sleep deprivation is a constant state of fatigue, a dulling of your mental faculties, and a pervasive weariness that makes every philosophical problem feel heavier, every intellectual debate more exhausting. When a serious illness like a severe fever or a persistent cough takes hold, you turn to the healers of your time. These practitioners, often called iatroi, might have some empirical knowledge passed down through generations, but their understanding of disease is fundamentally flawed. They might rely on the theory of the four humors: blood phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, believing that illness is caused by an imbalance. Their treatments designed to restore this balance can be quite drastic. You might be purged with strong emetics to induce vomiting, or given powerful laxatives to clear your bowels, both of which can leave you severely dehydrated and weaker than before. Cupping, where heated cups are placed on the skin to create suction and draw out bad humors, might leave painful red welts. Bloodletting, as mentioned before, could dangerously deplete your body. Historians still debate the true efficacy of many ancient Greek medical treatments. While some herbs certainly had medicinal properties, others were inert or actively harmful, and the overall understanding of pathology was limited. You are putting your life in the hands of individuals with a sincere desire to help but severely limited tools and understanding. And then there's the ever-present threat of epidemics. A sudden outbreak of plague or a virulent fever could sweep through your city, decimating the population. There's no quarantine, no vaccines, no effective treatments. People simply fall ill and die in droves. You live with the constant awareness that a seemingly random wave of sickness could claim your life or the lives of everyone you know at any moment. This looming threat undoubtedly colors your philosophical outlook, perhaps making you contemplate the fleeting nature of life, the fragility of human existence, and the ultimate futility of intellectual pursuits in the face of widespread death. Your philosophical reflections are not just abstract musings. They are often born from and deeply intertwined with the very real and immediate struggle against illness and mortality that defines your everyday life. Imagine yourself in the heart of a city-state, a seemingly stable entity, yet one constantly teetering on the brink of internal dissent or external aggression. Your philosophical discussions about justice and the ideal state feel profoundly relevant, yet simultaneously fragile, easily shattered by the clang of swords or the roar of a furious mob. You might wake up one morning to news of a tyrant seizing power, overturning the democratic institutions you've spent years debating and idealizing. This isn't a theoretical exercise from a safe distance. It's a sudden, terrifying shift in the very air you breathe. Guards patrol the streets. Whispers replace open debate, and public gatherings, once vibrant forums for discussion, become potential traps. Your philosophical inquiries, which thrive on freedom of thought and expression, are immediately stifled. To speak your mind to challenge the new order becomes an act of immense, potentially fatal courage. Consider the Peloponnesian War, a protracted and devastating conflict between Athens and Sparta. While you might be drawn to the intellectual vibrancy of Athens, this war would consume your life regardless of your philosophical inclinations. You are a citizen, and thus a potential soldier. The call to arms is not an option, it is a duty. You leave your wax tablets and your scrolls behind for a bronze shield and a spear. The philosophical concept of the good life seems a cruel joke when you are marching for days hungry and exhausted towards a battlefield where death is a near certainty. It's a common historical fact that these prolonged conflicts decimated populations, destroyed economies, and created immense social upheaval, directly impacting even the most insulated intellectual. The pursuit of wisdom feels trivial when your city is under siege, famine looms, and the very fabric of your society threatens to unravel. Even if you manage to avoid direct combat, the indirect consequences of war are inescapable. Trade routes are blocked, leading to shortages of essential goods. Food prices skyrocket, making your already meager existence even harder. Imagine trying to concentrate on the finer points of logic when your stomach growls with hunger, and you worry about your family's next meal. The city's resources are diverted to the war effort, meaning less investment in public works, less support for education, and a general decline in the quality of life. Disease, often rampant in times of peace, becomes an even greater threat in wartime, exacerbated by crowded conditions, poor sanitation, and weakened immune systems. The grand philosophical debates about virtue and ethics suddenly feel far removed from the brutal reality of survival. Political factions within your own city are another persistent threat. Even in a democracy, powerful individuals or groups constantly vie for influence. Orators, often more interested in personal gain than public good, sway the masses with cunning rhetoric, sometimes pushing policies that are illogical or disastrous. You, as a philosopher, might try to inject reason into these heated debates, pointing out logical fallacies or ethical inconsistencies. But your calm, measured arguments are often no match for raw emotion and populist appeals. You witness firsthand how easily the truth can be distorted, how quickly reason can be abandoned in favor of passion or prejudice. Historians still debate the true influence of philosophers on ancient Greek politics. While some were advisors, their ability to fundamentally alter the course of events was often limited by the prevailing political will. This can be deeply frustrating, a constant reminder of the limits of pure intellect in a world driven by power and emotion. Consider the phenomenon of ostracism, a unique Athenian practice where citizens could vote to exile an individual for 10 years. While intended to prevent tyranny, it could also be used to remove popular but politically inconvenient figures. As a philosopher whose ideas might challenge the status quo or whose independent thought makes you a target, you could find yourself suddenly uprooted, stripped of your property, and your connections forced to wander in exile. Imagine having your life's work, your intellectual community, and your sense of belonging suddenly ripped away simply because a majority of your fellow citizens deemed you a threat, however vaguely defined. This looming possibility undoubtedly added a layer of anxiety to your existence. Even when you are not directly involved in politics or war, the constant instability affects your ability to think clearly. How can you meditate on the eternal when your city is besieged or when a coup d'etat has just occurred? The very ground beneath your feet feels unstable. Your mind, which craves order and certainty, is instead plunged into a world of chaos and unpredictability. This creates a profound tension between your inner world of philosophical contemplation and the external world of political turmoil. You might seek refuge in your thoughts, but even there, the echoes of societal unrest are hard to silence. Your philosophical inquiries, therefore, are not abstract musings in an ivory tower. They are deeply embedded in and often a direct response to the harsh realities of your political environment. You philosophize about the ideal state because you live in a deeply flawed one. You debate justice because you witness injustice daily. You seek truth because you are surrounded by lies and propaganda. Your work is not just intellectual, it is a desperate attempt to make sense of a chaotic, often brutal world, and perhaps to offer a glimmer of hope for a better future, even as your own life is constantly threatened by the very forces you seek to understand. Your life as a Greek philosopher, already fraught with physical discomfort, social alienation, and political instability, also throws you headfirst into the often vicious world of philosophical rivalries. This isn't a quaint academic setting where polite disagreements are exchanged over cups of wine. No, this is a cutthroat intellectual arena where reputations are built on dismantling others' arguments and personal animosity can run as deep as intellectual discord. Imagine yourself attending a public lecture, perhaps by a renowned sophist or a rival school of thought. You are eager to hear their ideas, perhaps to learn, perhaps to find points of commonality. Instead, you witness a masterclass in intellectual combat. The speaker, rather than presenting a nuanced argument, spends a considerable portion of their time dissecting, satirizing, and outright ridiculing the views of others, perhaps even yours if your ideas have gained any notoriety. This isn't just about disproving a point, it's about diminishing the person who holds it. They might mock your simple attire, scoff at your humble origins, or twist your carefully articulated arguments into absurd caricatures. You learn quickly that in this world, an attack on an idea is often an attack on the individual. The sheer volume of competing philosophical schools means you are constantly on the defensive. There are the Platonists with their forms, the Aristotelians with their empiricism, the Stoics with their emphasis on virtue and reason, the Epicureans with their pursuit of pleasure, often misunderstood as hedonism, and the skeptics who question everything. Each school believes it holds the key to truth, and often their proponents view rival philosophies not just as incorrect, but as actively harmful or misguided. You are expected to choose a side to declare your allegiance, and then to vigorously defend your chosen doctrine against all comers. There's little room for intellectual eclecticism or nuanced synthesis. It's often an all-or-nothing battle for intellectual supremacy. It's a common historical fact that philosophical debates in ancient Greece were often characterized by fierce personal attacks and intense competition between schools. Consider the public debates often held in the agora or other public spaces where philosophers would challenge each other directly. These weren't quiet academic seminars. They were intellectual spectacles drawing crowds eager for entertainment and intellectual fireworks. You might find yourself on the receiving end of a barrage of rhetorical tricks, ad hominem attacks, and highly stylized arguments designed to impress the crowd rather than genuinely seek truth. Your opponent might deliberately misrepresent your views, put words in your mouth, or accuse you of impiety or sophistry. The goal isn't just to win the argument, but to discredit you entirely, to undermine your authority, and draw away your potential students. The pressure to perform to be quick-witted and eloquent is immense, and a single stumble, a moment of hesitation, could be seized upon and used against you. This constant need to defend your ideas against hostile attacks breeds a certain level of cynicism. You realize that many aren't truly interested in truth but in victory. They are not seeking understanding, but dominance. This can be deeply disheartening, eroding your idealism and forcing you to become more guarded, more strategic in your own arguments. You learn to anticipate attacks, to identify logical fallacies, and to construct your arguments like fortresses impervious to the intellectual battering rams of your rivals. This transforms philosophy from a pure quest for wisdom into a strategic game, a battle of wits where the stakes are your reputation and your livelihood. Even within your own philosophical circle, rivalries can fester. Students might compete for your attention or for the chance to become your successor. Disagreements over interpretation or methodology can quickly escalate into personal feuds. Imagine dedicating years to mentoring a promising student only for them to break away and establish their own school, fiercely criticizing your teachings in the process. This intellectual betrayal can be as painful as any personal slight, a reminder that even in the pursuit of dispassionate truth, human ego and ambition are never far beneath the surface. A lesser-known detail about many philosophical schools is the surprising amount of internal schisms and disagreements that led to new rival factions breaking away from established masters. Your financial stability is often tied to your philosophical reputation. If a rival successfully discredits you, your students might leave and potential patrons might withdraw their support. This isn't just about intellectual pride, it's about your ability to put food on your table. The stakes of these rivalries are therefore very real and very personal. You cannot simply retreat into your thoughts, you must actively engage in this intellectual warfare to survive. Furthermore, these rivalries aren't always confined to intellectual sparring. Philosophical differences could at times become entangled with political factions, leading to dangerous consequences. If your philosophical views aligned with a losing political party, or if a powerful rival had influential connections, you could find yourself targeted not just intellectually but politically. The lines between philosophical disagreement and political persecution could become dangerously blurred, as evidenced by the fate of many thinkers. Historians still debate the precise degree to which philosophical rivalries contributed to political instability and the persecution of certain thinkers, but the interconnectedness was undeniable. In essence, your life as a Greek philosopher is a constant struggle for intellectual breathing room, amidst a whirlwind of competing ideas, personal attacks, and the ever-present threat of being overshadowed or discredited. It's a testament to your resilience and commitment to truth that you continue to push forward seeking clarity and understanding in a world that often prefers intellectual dominance over genuine inquiry. This constant intellectual combat while sharpening your mind also leaves you constantly on edge, always ready for the next challenge, the next assault on your ideas and your very being. Your journey as a Greek philosopher, marked by intellectual rigor and personal sacrifice, often leads to an ending far less glorious than the serene statues depicting you might suggest. The pursuit of truth ironically frequently put you on a collision course with power tradition and the fickle whims of the populace. Many of your philosophical predecessors and contemporaries did not simply fade peacefully into old age. Their lives and their ends were often grim and violent. Imagine the pervasive sense of fragility that clings to every philosopher's existence. You are constantly challenging established norms, questioning religious beliefs, and scrutinizing political systems. This doesn't win you many friends among the powerful or the dogmatic. Your sharp intellect, which you hone with such dedication, can be perceived as a dangerous weapon by those who prefer comfortable ignorance. The idea that your life could be cut short not by illness or old age, but by the very society you sought to improve, is a chilling reality that hangs over your every debate and every written word. It's a common historical fact that many prominent Greek thinkers faced charges of impiety or corrupting the youth, often leading to severe punishment, including death. Consider the chilling precedent of Socrates' trial and execution. While the details of your own life might differ, his fate serves as a stark warning. You could be accused of not believing in the city's gods or of introducing new, unsettling deities. Your philosophical inquiries into the nature of virtue and the good life could be twisted into accusations of undermining traditional values and leading the youth astray. The judicial process itself would be far from what you might consider fair. There's no objective jury of peers, no clear rules of evidence. Instead, you face a large assembly of citizens swayed by powerful orators' popular opinion and long-standing prejudices. Your reasoned defense, no matter how eloquent, might be utterly lost in a sea of emotion and fear. You could be condemned to death, forced to drink hemlock, not for a crime against person or property, but for the crime of thinking too deeply and speaking too freely. Even if you avoid a formal trial, the threat of banishment or exile is ever present. As discussed before, a shift in political winds, a powerful enemy, or a simple popular vote could see you suddenly stripped of your citizenship, your property, and your connections, forced to wander in a foreign land. Imagine the profound despair of being cut off from your intellectual community, your students, and the familiar landscapes that shaped your thoughts. You would arrive in a new city as a stranger, often without resources, struggling to survive and to continue your philosophical work. The life of an exile is one of constant hardship, relying on the kindness of strangers or the meager returns of odd jobs while your intellectual fire slowly dims under the weight of unrelenting struggle. A lesser-known detail is how many exiled philosophers struggled desperately to rebuild their intellectual lives, often failing to regain their previous influence or access to texts. Beyond official persecution, you also face the risk of mob violence. Your critical thinking and unconventional lifestyle could easily provoke the ire of an unthinking crowd. A misconstrued statement, a perceived insult to popular beliefs, or even just being in the wrong place at the wrong time during a period of social unrest could lead to you being attacked, beaten, or even lynched by an angry throng. There is no police force as we understand it, no immediate protection from the fury of the masses. You are vulnerable, your physical safety constantly at risk in a society where passions can flare quickly and violently. Consider the physical deterioration that often accompanies your aging process, exacerbated by a lifetime of hardship. Your body, already scarred by illness, poor diet, and manual labor, begins to betray you. Your eyesight, already strained, dims further. Your joints ache with persistent arthritis, making movement painful. Your memory, once sharp and agile, begins to falter, making it harder to recall complex arguments or vast amounts of memorized text. These physical limitations directly impede your ability to pursue philosophy, to read, write, or engage in vigorous debate. The mind, still hungry for truth, finds itself increasingly imprisoned within a failing body. Even if you manage to live a long life and avoid direct persecution, your final years might be marked by obscurity and loneliness. The philosophical landscape is constantly shifting, with new thinkers and new schools of thought emerging. Your ideas, once fresh and challenging, might be seen as outdated or irrelevant by a younger generation. Your students might disperse or gravitate towards more fashionable doctrines. You could find yourself increasingly isolated, your voice fading. Amidst the clamor of new voices, your wisdom forgotten by a society more interested in the present than the enduring truths of the past. Historians still debate the extent to which philosophical longevity was truly valued, versus the tendency for new ideas to rapidly supersede older ones. The ultimate irony is that while you dedicate your life to uncovering universal truths and striving for an immortal legacy of thought, your personal ending is often profoundly human in its suffering and vulnerability. You are a reminder that even the greatest minds are subject to the same brutal realities as everyone else in ancient Greece: illness, poverty, political oppression, and the ever-present shadow of a violent or unceremonious end. Your philosophical journey is not a path to earthly glory or comfort, but a difficult, often painful ascent towards intellectual clarity, with no guarantee of a gentle landing. You've navigated the relentless physical hardships, the chilling social isolation, the unpredictable political storms, and the brutal intellectual battlegrounds that defined your existence as a Greek philosopher. Now, as your journey draws to a close, you grapple with the ultimate paradox, the enduring legacy of your ideas against the often bitter personal cost you paid to forge them. Your wisdom, profound and far-reaching, emerges from a life that was in so many ways fundamentally grueling. Imagine looking back on your life not from a comfortable armchair, but from a hard bench, your body aching, your eyes dim. You might see the countless hours spent in uncomfortable contemplation, the endless debates under a harsh sun, the nights spent shivering, ill or hungry. There were no grand halls built in your honor during your lifetime, no steady stream of wealthy patrons ensuring your comfort. Your legacy wasn't forged in ease, but in struggle, chipped away from the stone of daily hardship, much like the sculptures that would one day depict thinkers like you. It's a common historical fact that true recognition for many Greek philosophers often came posthumously long after their personal struggles had ended. Consider the profound impact your ideas would eventually have on Western thought, even if you could never fully grasp it. Your musings on ethics would influence centuries of moral philosophy. Your inquiries into logic would lay the groundwork for scientific reasoning. Your theories on the cosmos and epistemology would spark debates that continue to this day. Yet in your own time, these revolutionary thoughts often met with skepticism, ridicule, or outright hostility. You were often a voice crying in the wilderness, misunderstood by the masses, challenged by rivals, and sometimes persecuted by authorities. The bitterness of this immediate reception would undoubtedly sting even as you held firm to the conviction of your own truth. The very act of preserving your thoughts for posterity was an immense challenge. You didn't have printing presses. Every word you wrote had to be painstakingly inscribed on fragile papyrus or carved onto wax tablets. These precious scrolls were vulnerable to fire, damp, and decay. Your students might painstakingly copy them, but errors were common, and the dissemination was slow and limited. Imagine the frustration of knowing your profound insights could be lost to time simply because of the material limitations of your era. The very survival of your ideas, which now form the bedrock of so much human knowledge, was a monumental struggle, a testament to the dedication of those who copied and preserved them, often long after your demise. And what of your personal relationships? Did your relentless pursuit of abstract truth leave you isolated, unable to form deep, lasting bonds? While you might have had a small circle of dedicated students and fellow thinkers, the broader social sphere often remained closed to you. Your family, as we discussed, might have seen your life as impractical. Love, companionship, the simple joys of a settled home. These might have been secondary to your intellectual quest, perhaps even consciously sacrificed. The fame that comes with philosophical legacy is cold comfort for a life that might have been starved of basic human connection. Historians still debate the personal lives and emotional experiences of many Greek philosophers, often finding tantalizing but incomplete evidence of deep isolation or unconventional relationships. The physical discomforts you endured throughout your life didn't simply vanish in your old age. They intensified. Your body, already a vessel of chronic aches and pains, would only become more frail, more prone to illness. The simple acts of walking, sitting, or even holding a stylus might become agonizing. Your mind, though perhaps still sharp, would be increasingly confined by a failing body, a cruel irony for someone who dedicated their life to the power of pure thought. You would experience the ultimate philosophical problem in a very personal way, the mind's soaring aspirations tethered to the inevitable decay of the physical form. Perhaps the most poignant aspect of your legacy is that, while your ideas would inspire generations to come, the very struggles that forged those ideas would largely be forgotten. People would marvel at your wisdom, dissect your arguments, and build upon your theories, but few would truly grasp the daily grind, the constant hunger, the fear of persecution, or the sheer physical pain that was your constant companion. The marble statues would depict you in serene contemplation, not with the haunted eyes of one who has truly grappled with the brutal realities of existence. A lesser-known detail is how the idealized image of the philosopher, began to overshadow the lived, often difficult experiences of the individuals themselves, even in antiquity. Your life wasn't great in the comfortable aspirational sense of the word. It sucked in a multitude of tangible, visceral ways. It was a life of hardship, challenge, and often profound suffering. Yet it was precisely through these trials that your mind was sharpened, your resolve tested, and your insights deepened. Your legacy isn't just a collection of brilliant ideas. It's a testament to the indomitable spirit of human inquiry, a spirit that refused to be extinguished by discomfort, fear, or the indifference of the world. You gave humanity the gift of thought born from a life that was anything but easy. And in that paradox lies the true enduring power of your philosophical journey,